they should be in tackling cyber attacks despite a notable increase in hacking vulnerability. This is one of the questions that came out of the Mimecast latest State of Email Security report, which found that only 62% of South African organizations had a cyber resilience strategy or were actively rolling out one against a global average of 77%. For more on this, we're joined by Brian Pinnock, who is cybersecurity expert at Mimecast. Thank you very much for coming through.
Good afternoon.
Well, firstly, how rife is the cybersecurity threat, according to the report, especially during this time when we have been on lockdown and many people have been shopping online, having exposure to the internet, and how much of a threat are people under when they engage in such online activities?
So I think particularly this year, we've seen a gradual increase in cyber threats. And then particularly this year in our State of Emails report actually shows that there's been this rapid spike in cyber incidents because of the lockdown and the fact that most organizations have either shut down completely, which means their staff are not available to support them, or they are working from home, which is exposed them to a lot more vulnerability. So we've definitely seen a huge spike, and we've seen that in the hard numbers as well as the softer numbers where, like this Mimecast State of Email Security report.
So when it comes to being proactive in protecting oneself and the network where the employer has to protect their software programming, and as well as ensuring that when employees are working from home or if anybody is online, they are not susceptible to any kind of hacking.
So what we found, one of the best ways to be proactive is actually to roll out a cyber awareness training program. We've actually got some very good statistics to prove now. We've kind of known it all along, but we finally got the hard evidence to show it, that employees that are exposed to a cyber awareness training program are actually 5 times less likely to click on a bad link or to get themselves exposed to some form of vulnerability from a cyber attack point of view. So definitely one of the best things organizations can do is actually roll out a cyber awareness type program. The other thing organizations can do is actually, South Africa is a bit behind the curve when it comes to rolling out cyber resilience programs. Now, cyber resilience is different to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is just the first part. Cyber resilience is about what you do once you've been breached. How do you actually detect that breach? How do you respond? And ultimately, how do you recover from that breach? And that's the critical thing with cyber resilience. And we found that South African organizations are very much behind the curve, and specifically when it comes to email cyber resilience, because that is the number one attack vector that hackers use to actually attack organizations globally, and particularly South African organizations, because they see us as soft targets.
So now the report says phishing is potentially becoming more difficult to stop or prevent during more advanced tactics. I would like you to take us through these, words or the jargon that you guys use when it comes to mentioning phishing or talking about spear.
So there's a number of different types of attacks, and ultimately, really, the general public tends to, and particularly we see these things in movies, and they give the very wrong impression. Really, it's nothing more than fraud using information technology as the mechanism to deliver the fraud.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so as I was saying, it's really quite straightforward. What you have is a phishing attack is really just an attack where somebody is pretending to be somebody else. They're impersonating either a brand or a person. And what they do, and this is the big issue, is they actually impersonate well-known organizations' brands. So they take the trust that those brands have taken years to build up, and they weaponize that trust against the brand and against the consumer. So it might be a brand like the SABC, for example, or it could be a brand like a retailer, anything that's available, it's a well-known and trusted brand. And what those fraudsters do is they impersonate that brand, send in an email pretending to be a government department, an insurance company, a bank, whatever the case may be, to either steal information, which they then on-sell, or to actually actively get hold of people's money and get people to make a transaction of some kind.
All right, so how does one deal with data breach, and also when it comes to the trust deficit regarding using any kind of program that would protect you, say, for example, a firewall program that one would download so that they can ensure that they are secured on their PCs?
So individuals have a quite a challenge when it comes to that. One of the key issues that individuals need to do is make sure that they're using antivirus, that they're on the latest version of software that they can possibly be on. And there are a number of other things that they can do just to improve their cyber hygiene. But probably the best thing, they can just highly, highly vigilant and suspicious of these types of attacks, because we've seen a huge spike in these sorts of attacks during this COVID lockdown period. Organizations can do a lot more, and that's the critical thing, is not just, and that's what we found in this report, is South African organizations are actually quite complacent. And I think that's because there's not a lot of visibility. You mentioned the word data breach. There's a huge number of data breaches that happen in South Africa, and they kind of sit below the surface. As soon as the POPI Act becomes live in the next sort of several months, what's going to happen is people are going to have a legal obligation to report these data breaches. And I think we're going to see what appears to be a sudden spike in data breaches, whereas in reality that's actually been happening all along.
All right, thank you so much. I wish there was time for us to talk about protection of information, but we will do that as time goes on. But for now, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Right. We are talking about cyber-related issues when it comes to companies coming up with resilience when they are under attack. Brian Pinnock is a cybersecurity expert at Mimecast, and we take a break.